Today, global risks are still building, says the World Economic Forum. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Welcome to the latest post covering finance and prop news with a distinctively Australian flavour. The World Economic Forum has just released their 2020 report, the 15th in the series, and they highlight, quote, long mounting interconnected risks, driven by their annual Global Risk Perception Survey, which was completed by approximately 800 members of the forum's diverse communities. They conclude that the world cannot wait for the fog of geopolitical and geoeconomic uncertainty to lift, opting to ride out the current period in the hope that the global system will snap back, runs the risk of missing crucial windows to address pressing challenges. And they say at the time of writing, the IMF expected growth to be 3% in 2019, and that's the lowest rate since the economic crisis of 2008-9. And they say that today's emerging economies are expected to comprise 6 of the world's 7 largest economies by 2050. Rising powers are already investing more in projecting influence around the world, and digital technologies are redefining what it means to exert global power. As these trends are unfolding, a shift in mindset is also taking place among some stakeholders, from multilateral to unilateral, and from cooperative to competitive. The resulting geopolitical turbulence is one of unpredictability about who is leading and who are allies and who will end up winners and losers. They say the global economy is faced with a synchronized slowdown. The past 5 years have been the warmest on record, and cyber attacks are expected to increase this year, all while citizens protest the political and economic conditions in their countries and voice concerns about systems that exacerbate inequality. Indeed, the growing palpability of shared economic, environmental and societal risks signals that the horizon has shortened for preventing or even mitigating some of the direct consequences of these global risks. It is sobering that in the face of this development, when the challenges before us demand immediate collective action, fractures within the global community appear only to be widening, they say. Global commerce has historically been a pillar, an engine of growth, and a key tool for lifting economies out of downturns, but, as they warn, significant restrictions were placed on global trade last year. And this comes as G20 economies hold record high levels of debt and exhibit relatively low levels of growth. Ammunition to fight a potential recession is lacking, and there is a possibility of an extended low-growth period akin to the 1970s if lack of coordinated action continues. In addition, they say a potential decoupling of the world's largest economies, United States and China, is concern for further concerns. The question for stakeholders, they say, one that cannot be answered in the affirmative, is whether, in the face of a prolonged global slowdown, we are positioned in a way that will foster resiliency and prosperity. On the environment, they note with grave concern the consequences of continued environmental degradation, including the record pace of species decline. Respondents to their Global Risks Perception Survey are also sounding the alarm, ranking climate change and related environmental issues as the top 5 risks in terms of likelihood, and that's the first time in the survey's history that one category has occupied all 5 of the top spots. But despite the need to be more ambitious when it comes to climate action, the UN has warned that countries have veered off course when it comes to meeting their commitments under the Paris Agreement on climate change. And on global health and technology, they caution that international systems have not kept up to date with the challenges of these domains. The global community is ill-prepared to address vulnerabilities that have come alongside the advancements of the 20th century, whether they be the widening application of artificial intelligence or the widespread use of antibiotics. Today's risk landscape is being shaped in significant measure by an unsettled geopolitical environment, one in which new centres of power and influence are forming as old alliance structures and global institutions are being tested. While these changes can create new openings for new partnership structures, in the immediate term they are putting stress on systems of coordination and challenging norms around shared responsibility. Unless stakeholders adapt multilateral mechanisms for this turbulent period, the risks that were once on the horizon will continue to arrive. And they say the good news is that the window for action is still open, if not for much longer. And despite global divisions, we continue to see members of the business community signal their commitment to looking beyond their balance sheets and towards the urgent priorities ahead. And they highlighted the economic risks posed by global runaway climate change. Climate change is striking harder and more rapidly than many expected, they say, with the bushfires that have ravaged Australia, as well as floods and droughts around the world, bringing the issue to the forefront of the global agenda. They say alarmingly global temperatures are on track to increase by at least 3 degrees centigrade towards the end of the century, twice what climate experts have warned is the limit to avoid the most severe economic, social and environmental consequences. The economic threat posed by climate change could impact everything from national economies to the mortgage and insurance industries. Worldwide economic damage from the natural disasters in 2018 totaled about $165 billion, with that number set to increase if emissions remain at their current level. In the United States alone, climate-related economic damage could reach 10% of GDP by the end of the century, while over 200 of the world's largest firms estimate that climate change will cost them a combined total of nearly $1 trillion. But the report says many businesses are not planning on the physical and financial risks that climate change could have on their activities and value chains. And finally, the World Economic Forum warns that avoiding the most severe economic and social consequences of global climate change means limiting global warming to just 1.5 degrees centigrade over pre-industrial levels. And this equates to a remaining carbon budget of less than 10 more years of emissions at their current level, and demand for energy is only continuing to increase. No wonder, they say, that the world cannot wait for the fog of geopolitical and geoeconomic uncertainty to lift. I'm Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Many thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.